Welcome to Friday Friends, RI Elder Info's weekly look at the organizations and individuals providing resources for Rhode Island seniors, caregivers, and professionals.
Everybody, happy Friday. It is 9 o'clock on Friday and you are watching me, Deb Burton, Executive Director of RI Elder Info. And this is Friday Friends, our weekly streaming podcast, where every week we bring you guests and information that you or someone you know needs to know about. So please make sure you hit the bells, the whistles, the likes, the shares, the follows to help us get the word out. We are having a great conversation today with our friend Elizabeth on how to choose the right place to live as we age. Now, as you all know, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we could not do this without the support of our sponsors. So a huge thank you to United Healthcare, Brightside Behavioral Health, and McCarthy Law. Here's a message from McCarthy Law.
Here at McCarthy Law, we practice in the areas of estate planning, long-term care planning, elder care law, and residential real estate. Our focus is really on providing peace of mind to our clients.
If you're interested in scheduling a consultation with our office, you can feel free to reach out to us at 401-541-5540. You can also reach out via website at www.mccarthylawri.com. You also should check out our social media, both on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for some helpful tips and tricks.
Hi, Elizabeth. How are you?
Good. How are you, Deb?
Very good. Very good. So as we're getting older, I am getting more questions from more people about what is the right place for me as I get older. Can you share with folks, like, what are the options if somebody wanted to stay home, like getting their house modified, or if it's time for an assisted living or a nursing home? How do you know which one is which?
Right. I think the biggest question we get is, when do I start? When do I make these choices? What is the right time? And I feel strongly that if you're asking yourself those questions, the time is now. And so we love to talk about choosing a senior living option as not just a housing decision. It's really a life transition if you're making a change of any kind. And we always tell families to make these decisions in planning mode prior to crisis mode. There is no one size fits all. There is no perfect place for any individual, but there are good fits. And so the options range anywhere from remaining in your home, which is most people's priority. They like to stay home, and then adding services there. So we can do things like home modifications. We can add service providers in the home. We can do things to ensure safety measures are met. But at a certain point, home may not be able to be made safe enough for an individual. And so at that point, what are we looking at? Are we looking at an independent living community, somewhere where they just need somebody around, somewhere where they might have services available should they need them? It doesn't necessarily mean that you're losing your autonomy, your decision making. It just might mean that you need something different as you age, and that's absolutely okay. We all need something different as we get older. We all have transitions, and that doesn't stop just because we're over the age of 65, 75, 85.
Yeah, at a certain point in time, lifting that mattress to change the sheets really does become a pain in the back.
I was going to say that's a pain in the back now. But absolutely, considering things like your home furnishings, the layout of your home, thinking about stairs, thinking about textured floors. So you might be looking around your home and you really like those throw rugs. And someone like me walks in and says, I really don't like throw rugs. But we always try to be as considerate to the individual as possible when we're making recommendations about adding additional support, adding additional care, or making a transition in care location. And so things like throw rugs, if that means I have to get rid of my scatters and I can stay home longer, let's do that. Let's do that. It's not worth
Right.
it, I promise.
I love staying home more than I love my throw rugs.
Right, exactly. Just don't sneak them in after I leave, Deb. Like, where's that bathroom rug come from? So I think the best way to kind of start the decision-making process as to what the right fit is that start with your whys. Is something prompting a move? Or is there something prompting additional service requirements or changes in our home environment? Is it safety concerns? Is it care needs, physical care needs? Is it social isolation? That happens as we get older, as our friends lose the ability to drive or they move away. Things change socially, and that can have a huge impact on our ability to remain in our homes. Or is it caregiver burnout? Your daughter just can't spend the time bringing you to doctor's appointments or coming to help you clean the house or any number of things that can happen. She might have concerns of her own or need to take care of another elderly loved one. And then to clarify your goals, how can we balance our independence with the need for support? They're not one or the other. It's not black or white. You can be independent with support, and you can have support and still be independent. So making sure that that's something that you kind of reason with yourself with. Talking about social engagement. And then, of course, the ultimate, which is medical oversight. What are our conditions that might require additional medical support, which is very important to consider. This why, setting your whys, helps you avoid choosing a decision or making a decision based on emotion and pressure and marketing. Sometimes,
A lot of times marketing, yep.
There's some marketing aspects of choosing, care providers. We're always more apt to go for the ones that are shiny and bright and engaging.
Yep.
So we want to be able to set those things aside and really prioritize our own feelings and our own whys and our own goals.
And it's also important, I think, to say what is important to the individual who's going to live there versus the person who might be selecting where the individual will live. One person might like, for example, the country decor, while another person might like ultra modern. Ultimately, the person who's going to be living there is the one who needs to like the place.
Absolutely. And we all tend to focus a little bit more on those obvious things that we can kind of judge a book by its cover, right?
Yep.
So shiny, shiny and new and beautiful and big and grandiose. Who doesn't want to live on a cruise ship? Who doesn't want to live, in a beautiful hotel setting or a apartment building setting? But what goes on behind the scenes at these, communities is more important than how old the carpeting is or how new the beautiful tiles are or how, big and open the showers are. I have individuals, especially once they become more cognitively compromised, that a big white stall shower is scary.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming. There's more room to fall. There's more room to slip. There's more anxiety surrounding that. And so if we're considering, a place, an apartment saved by the shower, we have to consider what the individual who's going to be taking the shower there is going to experience.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. That's absolutely true. And I didn't really think about the size of the shower, but I know, for an example, if my shower curtain is not like sealed against the walls, I get a little bit of a draft when I'm in the shower. So if I'm in a big open space, the air around me is not going to feel as warm because it's a big open space, as opposed to a smaller shower where the shower itself is going to heat up the air and I'm not going to feel that draftiness. So if I'm resistant to care, then that's one less thing that somebody needs to worry about. Which,
Right.
speaking of cognitive impairment, what is the difference between an assisted living and a memory care assisted living?
So we get that question a lot because people put the tag of memory care on any type of memory supportive environment. And so we have assisted living that provides support with activities of daily living, such as bathing, dressing, medication management, sometimes escorts, walking with somebody, or pushing them in a transfer chair or wheelchair. That is all doable in an assisted living community. They also provide your custodial care, which is your meals and your housekeeping and things like that. A true memory care within an assisted living scope generally is either partially or entirely secured, meaning the doors are alarmed and it takes pretty much an act of God for somebody to open up those doors. You either have the passcode or the key fob, or you don't. For those who exhibit behaviors such as wandering, exit seeking, and things like that, that is the best environment for them because it's a self-contained world that is staffed specifically for those individuals who need memory support. And so they may have a higher caregiver ratio. They have tailored and very specific activities that are geared towards individuals that need more support with engaging in those activities, or prefer reminiscing over going out and going to a museum, because at a certain point it's less appealing to leave your safe space than it is to engage with somebody within that safe space. And so a true memory care will have those types of services. Hopefully they have dementia certified practitioners. They also have GeriPsych resources to help people with behavior management, therapies, and medications. And then you have a secure memory care unit within a skilled nursing facility, which is a completely different creature. And those skilled nursing facilities provide a secure memory environment, meaning you've got to have the passcode to get out or be let out by a staff member. But it provides a higher level of medical oversight and supervision, as well as those supportive services for individuals with cognitive impairment.
Now, I noticed that you say skilled nursing facility. Is that the same as a skilled rehab facility?
So they can be one and the same within one community, but generally a short-term rehab is part of a skilled nursing facility. And so you have two parts to that. You have your short-term care, which is your rehabilitative care. Oftentimes that's covered by insurance after a hospitalization. Some communities can admit to short-term rehab from a doctor referral. It all just depends on your insurance and how you come to need that service.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have your long-term care, which is an additional service provided by these skilled nursing facilities. Skilled nursing just means that they have a medical director that's a physician. They also have nurse practitioners that are involved in care, usually always, because all of our doctors have to have that backup now. And then you have skilled nurses on 24/7, in addition to LPNs, CNAs, and med techs.
Wow. So it's a lot. How does somebody know what their loved one needs? Like, where do they start to try to figure all that out? Like, okay, they've got Parkinson's. Like, how do I know where to start? Or there maybe it's not, something as progressive as Parkinson's. Maybe it's just, they're 87.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you have to consider two sides of the coin here. You have to talk about their clinical needs or their medical needs, right? Which are often decision-making factors for changes in level of care. And then you put on the other side the lifestyle factors, the personality of that individual, their daily routine, their cultural preferences, sometimes even religious preferences, for those of us who have them. And so look at specific needs like your medication management, what your mobility looks like, what your cognitive status is. Those are all triggers for your medical needs. Do you need one-on-one care, basically, where you need assistance with just about everything? Are you medically complex? Do you have diabetes and heart disease? Do you have cognitive impairment and a history of falls? There are a lot of different medical needs that kind of trigger one way or the other where we're going to be going, which direction we're going to be heading. And then again, considering the individual behind the patient, right? Because oftentimes they're considered a patient once you reach a certain age.
Yep.
You know, you're patient number 6 in room 202 at the hospital, and you've had 4 falls now, and we've kept you for your 3 overnights, right?
Yep.
So oftentimes that involves a discharge to a short-term rehab. If you are in better shape than most, there are options now in the state of Rhode Island that are rehabilitation hospitals. Those are specifically geared towards a high level of tolerance for physical, occupational, speech, and other therapies. And those are strictly for people whose goal is to return home post-rehab. So a lot of individuals that have joint replacement surgeries, cardiac surgeries that are on the younger end of the spectrum or the healthier end of the spectrum, and they're anticipated to be able to tolerate, say, physical therapy 3 times a day. It's intensive. They want to get you better. They want to get you better quicker, and they want to get you home. That is also an option for people. And that's a very hospital-like setting. It's called a rehabilitation hospital for a reason. They can do IVs, they can do injections, they can do a lot right there for the individuals to get them back on their feet. And so we really have to consider the best community clinically may not be the best community emotionally for that person too. So we do have to consider that whole person when we're thinking about a transition in care. And that's why have these conversations with your loved ones. Talk about it. Hey, honey, if I fall and break my hip, do we have a plan? If you have a heart attack or a stroke, what would you want me to do? These conversations are something that we are programmed from a young age. We don't talk about it. We don't want it. If we talk about it, we manifest it,
Yeah, a lot of times that's exactly the thing. And
Yeah.
as people don't want to talk about these things, or the belief of, well, you'll just know what to do, or, somebody else will have to worry about it.
That one. Especially with funeral planning, but that's a whole nother ballgame. But I've had clients say, well, that's my kid's problem. But it's
Exactly. So
It's
when it
not.
comes to these different healthcare options, who pays for it?
So that is entirely dependent on the level of care that we're looking at. And then it also depends on your medical history in some cases. So if we are looking at getting home health care in to do some physical therapy with you at home, generally that's covered by your Medicare benefit or your supplemental insurance. And so your doctor writes a prescription to the home health care agency and says they need some physical therapy due to being a high fall risk or a history of falls. Or they say, well, you've been to the ER and you broke your arm. And so they write a prescription to this home health company to come and do some therapy with you at home. Or you've had a change in your diabetic management, which happens a lot as we age because our metabolisms they change so much so fast that talk to your endocrinologist or your PCP and say, hey, we've had a lot of changes in these meds lately. They've gone up, they've gone down. I don't feel like stable. That can be a trigger for them to write a prescription to the home health agency to come out and send a nurse to ensure that your medications are being managed appropriately, because they can be the boots on the ground for the doctor where the doctor cannot be there. And they can be there several days a week, checking your blood sugar history, making sure your diet is good, making sure you're exercising as much as you can, and then managing those medications accordingly. When you have a hospitalization, so you have a stroke, God forbid, but that's a common occurrence with us as we age. And it can occur at any age, really. We can't just say it happens once you're 90. It can happen when you're 60. It can happen when you're 70. It can happen at any time. And so you have a hospitalization where you have your 3 overnight stays. And I say that very clearly because I want everybody to understand you have to be admitted to the hospital for at least 3 midnights. Admitted to the hospital, not in the emergency room, not under observation. And the reason this is so essential is because once that discharge planner or care manager at the hospital says, here's your list of nursing homes or rehabilitation facilities, pick 3, and you pick 3, and you go to that rehab, the rehab is assuming that you're going to be covered by your Medicare or your supplemental insurance for the rehabilitation stay. If you have not been admitted for 3 midnights at the hospital, Medicare and the supplemental insurance are not going to cover that rehab stay, and you will be considered custodial care despite needing the rehab. It doesn't matter to them. And so you'll be liable for the full daily rate at that nursing home, which can range anywhere between $350 to $550 a day.
And when you say custodial rate, it's also known as private pay.
Exactly. And private pay is a very scary thing. However, once you are at private pay status in a nursing home, you can also do some planning in order to be able to either afford the private pay care or to qualify for Medicaid. Medicaid is a benefit that pays for the custodial care within a skilled nursing facility. So your room, board, and physical care at the nursing home that keeps you stable and safe, that's paid by Medicaid.
As long as you're Medicaid eligible, right?
Exactly. And becoming Medicaid eligible is something that is different for everybody, depending on your financial situation and depending on your home situation, whether you have a spouse living at home or a medically complex adult child living at home, whether you own a home or not. They also look at things, any liquid assets. So anything that has a cash value, Medicaid has to look at. Anything that has a potential cash value, they have to look at, including things like life insurance policies and retirement policies that some are exempt and some are not. And so we always look at that. McCarthy helps families to really pick apart and analyze the entire financial picture for our clients' families so that they can make recommendations based on that as to becoming eligible for Medicaid. Okay. We also look at situations like, okay, you've had a couple falls, home's not feeling safe, you want to go to an independent living community. The majority of independent living communities that are privately owned that provide services to clients such as meals and housekeeping are private pay. However, there are a number in the state of Rhode Island that do offer a Medicaid waiver for independent living and a Medicaid waiver for assisted living as well. Again, you're either private pay or you're Medicaid, basically. Really, there's no in between. It's kind of funny like that. But we also help clients to find placement in the right place at the right time, whether that's private pay for a period of time, or Medicaid within the community. And so there's flexibility. There are options. It might feel like the world is caving in when you have to make these decisions, but when you have the right resources on your side, especially going to Rhode Island Elder Info, I encourage you. Deb has an incredible resource gallery that if you just take a second and look, so many of the questions that families just have and they're confronted with and they're stressed out about, The answers are right there in front of your nose. She's laid them out on a silver platter. You just have to take advantage of it.
Thank you. And if they're stuck and they're not sure what to do or how to go about protecting assets or making those plans, they can give you a call at McCarthy Law. And you guys can help them with that.
Absolutely.
Even if it's like, I know Medicaid looks back 5 years, but if there's a crisis, is there a way that McCarthy Law might still be able to protect assets, even if the falls have already happened or the stroke just occurred?
Absolutely. That's generally the best time to make these plans, because prior to needing the Medicaid, right, there's not much you can do, because that falls within the purview of Medicaid's 5-year look back. They're going to look back and they're going to say, no way, Jose. But what we do is Medicaid asset protection plans, where we outline what can legally be saved and what legally must be spent. So you can have a situation where a client has what's known as a spend down, where they have to spend a certain percentage or a certain amount of their income and assets prior to becoming eligible for Medicaid. We help walk you through that. Or if you've already disposed of funds in a non-qualified manner, text your grandchildren. If those gifts cannot be returned, then you are within what's known as a penalty period for Medicaid, which means you're going to privately pay for a certain number of days based on the amount of gifting you have done. And so prior to making decisions like writing big checks to your grandkids or paying for your son's roof, we want you to come and talk to an elder care attorney so that they can help you make those decisions in the most logical way and the most legal way, so that you're not penalized later, or that your grandchildren are faced 3 years later with having to repay a gift that they might not be able to repay. And unfortunately, that does happen to families where they've made some decisions with their finances that come to bite them in the rear end at the end. And we try to avoid that as much as possible with our elder care team and with our life care program here at McCarthy.
Awesome. Elizabeth, I always enjoy having a conversation with you. I hope that you will come back on in the future, because I feel like there's so much information that you have that so many folks out there really need. So I appreciate you coming on today.
Oh, you're the best, Deb. I love chatting with you.
Thank you. Everybody, it's important that you understand what you and your loved one needs, wants, and how it will be covered when it comes to care as we age and choosing the right place to live as we age. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to Elizabeth at McCarthy Law. You can always visit the RIElderinfo.com website or give me a call here at RIElderinfo. Happy to answer questions for you, but RIElderinfo.com cannot offer legal, medical, financial, or estate planning advice, but Elizabeth and her team at McCarthy Law can. So please feel free to reach out to make sure that you're doing the things that are best for you and your family. I am so glad that you are all able to join me today. I look forward to seeing you again next week. In the meantime, be well and be kind.